She confessed to cheating with my best friend, then secretly forged my signature to steal $250, $0 of our inheritance, and now she's suing me for emotional damages. I just found out everything after she filed for divorce. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation where everything I believed about my marriage would come crashing down in a matter of days. It started with little things, missed calls, secretive texts, her being oddly distant, but I brushed it off at first. I was convinced she was just stressed from work or maybe going through a phase. We had been together for 8 years, married for 5, and honestly, I thought I knew her inside out. But then came the day I saw her phone light up with a message from some guy named Jake. It wasn't just the usual friendly banter. It was flirtatious, intimate, and downright inappropriate. She had always been a little bitchy when caught off guard, quick to lie, quick to dismiss, and always with a new excuse ready. That day, I decided to check her phone when she went to the grocery store. I didn't think I'd find what I did. There were dozens of messages, some explicit, some just suggestive, but all clearly more than just friends. She told me she was working late that night, but her messages with Jake told a different story. They were sneaking around, planning meetups, sharing secrets, and I could feel my stomach tighten with betrayal. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, trying to process what I was reading. I didn't want to believe it. She had always been the perfect wife, bitchy when she needed to be, sure, but loyal. Or so I thought. It was like someone had punched me in the gut. I felt this huge rush of anger, confusion, and sadness all at once. How could she do this? With my best friend, no less. I'd always trusted her and him. We had shared everything, our hopes, our fears, our money. And now I was faced with the reality that she'd been lying right under my nose. The next day, I decided I needed to confront her. I kept my cool as much as I could, but inside I was boiling. When I asked her about the messages, she looked me dead in the eye and told me I was crazy. That I was. Imagining things, that she loved me and that Jake was just a nothing more. She called me paranoid, accused me of snooping because I didn't trust her. That's when I knew she was lying again. Because if she truly loved me, she wouldn't be sneaking around with my best friend. It was a punch to the gut hearing her deny everything, especially when I knew it was all true. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of numbness, like I was watching my life fall apart in slow motion. I couldn't understand how she could be so callous, so willing to ruin everything we built for a few moments of sex with Jake. And what's worse, she kept lying, kept spinning her stories, insisting she was innocent. She even had the nerve to say I was overreacting, that I was insecure and jealous. But I was. I knew the truth. And the truth was that she'd been cheating on me with my best friend, and I had to figure out what to do next. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at her the same way. The woman I once thought was my partner, my confidant, was now just a stranger, someone who had lied to me, cheated on me, and then had the audacity to deny it. I started digging into her phone more, looking for any other signs, any other lies she might be hiding. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd been dishonest with. I found texts, emails, even bank statements that didn't add up. She'd been secretly forging my signature. I don't even know how she managed it, but she stole $250, $0 from our inheritance account. That's $250,000, money we'd saved for our future, for a house, for our kids if we ever had any. She transferred it to some account she set up in her name, claiming she needed it for emergencies and investments. When I confronted her about it, she told me she was just trying to protect us from losing everything, like I was some clueless idiot who couldn't handle our finances. She lied so effortlessly, I almost believed her at first, but I knew better. I knew she'd been planning this for a while. She'd been manipulating me, hiding her true intentions behind her bitchy smirk and sweet words. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. All those late nights, all those little fights, I just thought she was stressed or tired. Turns out she was planning her escape, taking our money, lying to my face, and screwing my best friend. I found out about the theft after I noticed irregularities in our bank statements. I demanded an explanation and she just shrugged, said she needed the money to fix things and that I was overreacting. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and watch her drain us dry, lie her way out of everything, and then turn around and sue me for emotional damages which she filed after I caught her cheating. I was furious. I started making plans, gathering evidence, talking to lawyers. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done. I wanted her to understand that betrayal like this doesn't just go away. It sticks with you, like a scar you can't ignore. The thing that really pushed me over the edge was when I saw her trying to spin the story in court, claiming I was the one who caused her emotional distress. She's a master manipulator. She's good at lying, good at twisting everything around. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I knew she'd been lying about everything from the affair to the theft, and now she was trying to make me look like the bad guy. I had to take control. I couldn't trust her anymore, not with our money, not with our marriage, not with the truth. So here I am trying to put the pieces together. I don't know what's coming next, but I do know one thing: I'm done being the fool. I'm done being the victim. She can lie, cheat, steal, and sue all she wants. I've got enough evidence to expose her, and I'm ready to fight back. I never thought I'd be in this position, but you learn quickly that some women are just snakes, bitchy, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for their own selfish reasons. I don't know how I'll come out of this, but I won't let her win. Not without a fight. After I gathered everything, bank statements, her messages, copies of the forged signatures, and even some recordings, I realized I was sitting on a mountain of proof. I hadn't wanted it to come to this, but she left me no choice. The betrayal was too deep and her lies too blatant. I decided I needed to confront her one last time, but this time I was prepared. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be played anymore, that I knew exactly what she'd been up to. That evening I called her into the living room. She was acting confident, bitchy even, like she thought she was untouchable. She had her usual smirk, that dismissive look that always got under my skin. I laid everything out on the table: the bank statements, the forged signatures, the texts, the emails, even the receipts I found for her new accounts. I watched her face as she realized I wasn't bluffing. Her smile faltered, and for the first time I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. She tried to deny everything. "This is all a misunderstanding," she said. "You're overreacting, you're jealous. I love you and I would never do anything to hurt you." But I wasn't buying it. I told her I knew about the affair with Jake, about the money she stole, about the forged signatures. Her face went blank. Then she started to spin her usual web of lies. She said Jake was just a friend, that I was paranoid and insecure, that I was imagining things again. She insisted she only cheated because I was neglecting her, that she was desperate for affection, that she was just a bitchy woman who needed attention. That's when I snapped. I told her she was a liar, a cheat, and a thief. I told her I was done. I told her I was filing for divorce and I wanted her out of my life. I also told her I was going to press charges for the theft and take her to court for everything she'd done. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand that there are consequences for betrayal, especially when it involves someone you once loved and trusted. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, throwing a fit, claiming I was ruining her life, that she was the victim here. She said I was emotionally abusing her, that I was the one who caused her stress and pain. She even had the nerve to sue me for emotional damages, claiming I was the one tormenting her. That was the moment I knew she was a master manipulator, trying to turn the tables, making herself the victim, even as she was caught red-handed. In the days that followed, I moved out of the house. I hired a lawyer, started the divorce process, and reported her to the bank for the forged signatures. I also contacted an investigator who confirmed she'd been transferring our inheritance money into her own accounts, and I got a court order to freeze those funds. The whole thing was a whirlwind. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, betrayed by the woman I loved, betrayed by my best friend, betrayed by the woman I thought I knew. But through all this chaos, I realized something. I had been blind, but I wasn't stupid. I had evidence now. I had the truth, and I was finally taking control of my life again. I didn't want to be with someone who could do this to me, who could lie, cheat, steal, and then have the audacity to sue me for emotional damages when she was the one causing all the pain. I felt angry, bitter, and betrayed, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I knew I was better off without her, and I was determined to rebuild my life piece by piece. The fallout was immediate and intense. Once I went public with all the evidence, those bank statements, the forged signatures, the texts, I expected her to scramble to try and spin some new story. Instead, she doubled down on her bitchiness, insisting she was the victim, that I was attacking her out of jealousy and insecurity. She hired a lawyer and filed that ridiculous lawsuit claiming emotional damages from all the stress and trauma I supposedly caused her. Honestly, it was laughable. I knew her game. She always played the victim when things got tough, but I wasn't buying it anymore. Meanwhile, I was busy with the divorce proceedings. I knew I had to protect what was left of my assets, and I wanted her out of my life for good. I also worked with my lawyer to get a court order to recover the stolen money. The judge wasn't stupid. He saw through her manipulations and ordered her to return the $250, $0, or face serious penalties. I felt a strange mixture of relief and anger. Relief because I finally had a way to get that money back, and anger because I'd been so blind, so naive, to think she was the woman I married. One of the most shocking moments came when I learned that she'd been secretly planning her escape for months. She'd been talking to Jake about splitting everything, about how she'd take her half of the inheritance, the money she'd stolen, and leave me behind. I found messages where she was openly discussing how she'd finally be free and how she'd start fresh somewhere else. That was the moment I realized she'd been lying to my face all along, pretending to love me, pretending to be loyal, while secretly plotting her exit. I also discovered she'd been trying to forge my signature on legal documents to sell some of our property. I can't even describe how furious I was. That woman had no limits, lying, cheating, stealing, and now trying to manipulate legal processes to cover her tracks. I hired a private investigator to follow her, and what I found confirmed everything. She'd been meeting with shady lawyers, trying to get her hands on more of our money, planning her move. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. There were nights I couldn't sleep, replaying everything in my head, her lies, her cheating, her theft. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, so trusting. But at the same time, I realized I needed to pick myself up and focus on rebuilding. I started therapy, talking to friends, and trying to process all the pain. I knew I'd need time to heal, but I also knew I couldn't let her destroy me completely. The most bitter part was her suing me, claiming I caused her emotional distress. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to do that after everything she'd done. I wasn't the one who forged my signature, stole our inheritance, or cheated with Jake. Yet she was trying to turn the tables, making herself the victim in court. That's when I knew I had to fight harder, to expose her lies, to hold her accountable, and to protect what was left of my dignity. I was tired of being the fool. I was tired of her lies. But I was more determined than ever to get justice, no matter how long it took. The court battles dragged on, and every day felt like a new punch to the stomach. She kept playing the victim, insisting I was the one causing her pain, that she was just misunderstood, that she loved me but I was too paranoid to see it. Meanwhile, I had mountains of evidence that proved her lies: texts with Jake, the forged signatures, the bank transfer records, and even witness testimonies from people who saw her meeting with Jake or heard her talking about running away with the money. Her lawyer tried to claim that I was emotionally abusive, that I'd been controlling and manipulative, but it was laughable. I knew her game. She was trying to manipulate the court into feeling sorry for her, into dismissing the real issues: her infidelity, her theft, her manipulation. I had to stay strong, keep my cool, and present the facts clearly. I knew that if I let her get under my skin, I'd lose control of the case, and she'd walk away with more than she deserved. One of the darkest moments came when she attempted to get full custody of the house, claiming I was unfit because I was emotionally unstable from the stress of the divorce. That was her typical tactic: twist truth, lie with a straight face, and hope people believe her. I was furious, but I stayed composed. I hired a good attorney and gathered character witnesses, friends and colleagues who could vouch for my stability and integrity. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way into controlling everything, especially not our home. Throughout all this, I also discovered she'd been secretly forging my signature on legal documents, trying to sell off parts of our property. I found evidence of her meeting with shady lawyers, trying to transfer assets illegally. It was like she was trying to erase me completely, to take everything we had built and run away with it. I reported her to the authorities, and they started investigating her activities. I knew she was desperate, cornered, and willing to do anything to save herself. The emotional toll was staggering. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. I'd loved her once, truly loved her, but her actions had shattered everything. I spent nights questioning whether I'd missed signs, whether I'd been too trusting. But I also knew I had to focus on the future. I started reading everything I could on betrayal, manipulation, and rebuilding after heartbreak. I realized that I couldn't change her, but I could control my own actions and decisions. The thing that kept me going was the knowledge that I had done everything I could to prove her guilt. All the evidence pointed to her guilt, and I knew that eventually justice would prevail. She could keep lying and twisting stories, but the truth was out there. I also started planning what I'd do after all this was over, how I'd rebuild my life, recover my finances, and move forward. I didn't want her to win, not emotionally, not financially, not in any way. She'd betrayed me, yes, but I was determined to come out of this stronger. I had to, for my own sanity and for my future. The final court date came faster than I expected, and I was ready. I had all the evidence lined up: bank records, forged signatures, her own texts, witness statements, and I knew I had the law on my side. Watching her try to spin her lies in court was almost laughable now. She looked desperate, her bitchy smirk replaced by a cold, calculating glare. She still insisted she was the victim, that I'd ruined her life, that all her actions were just a response to my supposed control and neglect. But I wasn't buying her act anymore. When the judge finally read the ruling, it felt like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. She was ordered to return the stolen $250, $0, and the court dismissed her emotional damages claim, calling her accusations baseless and an obvious attempt at manipulation. I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with exhaustion. The legal battle was over, and now I could finally start healing. Looking back, I realize I learned some tough lessons. Trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. Your wife, your best friend, the person you thought you knew. I also learned that sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight for it, no matter how hard it gets. I had to be ruthless with the evidence, steadfast in my resolve, and willing to expose every lie she told. It was a brutal process, but it was necessary. Most importantly, I've come to understand that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about reclaiming your life and dignity. I didn't want to destroy her. No, I just wanted her to face the consequences of what she'd done. And I did. I walked away with my head held high, knowing I had fought for what was right. I've started to rebuild my finances, my trust in myself, and my sense of stability. I don't think I'll ever fully forget what happened, but I will move on, wiser and more cautious. Now I focus on my future. I've cut out the toxic people, her, Jake, anyone who enabled her lies, and I've learned to trust myself again. I'm not perfect, and I still get angry sometimes when I think about how much I lost, but I know I'll be okay. I want others to know that betrayal is the end of the world, even if it feels like it at first. Sometimes, the hardest lessons teach us the most about ourselves, and in the end, the truth always surfaces. That's where I am now, healing, moving forward, and finally free from the chaos she brought into my life. I hope sharing this helps someone else who's going through something similar. Trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Because at the end of the day, you're the only one who can truly take control of your life again.